All right, it is time for the currently reading weekly wrap up for week number 3. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to be here today and to share with you this video. This is going to be looking back on how week 3 went for my currently reading challenge for May 2023, which is the time where I let my reading be guided by the jars. I have a jar for fiction and a jar for nonfiction, and each week I pick out 3 fiction titles, 2 nonfiction titles, and those are my reading choices for the week. And I aim to read 50 pages a day, 5 days out of the week, with aiming for a grand total weekly of 250 pages. I don't know if a week gets a grand total, but I don't know, subtotal, it's the total for the week. I guess the grand total is really after the 4 weeks. Anyway, so we're going to take a look and see, did I get to 250 pages this week? How much did I read from the 5 choices that I picked out? And just generally how the week went. So we're going to go title by title as always, and we're going to start with the least pages read, which again for this week is 0-ish pages, but 1 hour and 10 minutes of We Were Dreamers, an Immigrant Superhero Story by Simu Liu. This is a book that I was reading in print, and then I switched to audio at the beginning of the month. It actually got picked week 1, and I listened to, I think, 2 hours, 10 minutes maybe in week 1, and this week I listened to 1 hour and 10 minutes, and I have 4 hours and 50 minutes to go, and this equates to, in the book, it was about 40 pages. So I don't know if I should have looked that up, to be honest, because I felt pretty good at the 1 hour 10 minutes, and then when I saw the 40 pages, I was like, that doesn't feel like a lot. But anyway, doesn't matter. I'm not counting the pages just simply because I don't count pages for audiobooks, because I listen to so few of them. Anyway, so I really am enjoying this. Simu Liu is an actor. He was on Kim's Convenience and is in Shang-Chi. And this section that I was listening to was him coming over from China to Canada and growing up in Kingston, and then Etobicoke, I believe. Etobicoke. And then, I'm trying to remember, I listened to it all in one go, so, and it was actually really interesting. I listened to it all in one day. Unfortunately, this week was a bit tough, and it was a really heavy schedule, so I didn't work on getting in this sort of into my daily routine, which is what I tried week 1. This week I had a long transit day, so I just listened to it on that day. And I was actually going up to the neighborhood I grew up in, so it was kind of interesting to hear him talk about his childhood and teen memories as I was in the neighborhood I grew up in. So that was just really interesting. I'm loving this. I'm thrilled that I switched to the audiobook. He is a wonderful narrator. It is and it's really interesting because this whole section was about him, but up until that point it was mostly about his parents. So it's shifted. The tide has shifted and things have changed, and it's been lovely. I've really enjoyed it. There's tough stuff in here though, I gotta say. I was not quite expecting that, and so I am listening with good ears to hear the story of his life, and so I am looking forward to listening to more. So yeah, 1 hour and 10 minutes, that's pretty good for me for an audiobook, to be honest. And now on to actually it was all digital this week, so on to the digital pages that I read. First up with 30, or second, the next title, you can't go wrong with that one. The next title is Heart of the Wolf by Terry Spear. I read 37 pages from this title, and I have 237 to go. This is a paranormal romance. It's the first in a series. I picked it back, it was over a year ago now. I think it was either right before or right after the last currently reading challenge in May. And I picked it because it is one of the titles later in the series is on the Vaginal Fantasy Book Club pick. It was an alternate pick, and my goal is to read all of the titles, or try all of the titles up until 100 titles, up until their last live show. I think the book club has continued on Discord mostly. It was on Goodreads for a bit, but the last time I checked, Goodreads was quite quiet, but they do have a Discord. So, but I want to catch up with the ones that were before, and I had started participating in the live show, or participating in the book club, which was I think 2014, 2015, and then until their last live show. So anyway, so this was the title for that. This is about werewolf shifters. It has a very, I find this is a pretty, in shifter romances and in some other paranormal romances, it has a dynamic that is, or a setup that is pretty similar. So there's one female werewolf that is quite coveted. She is a bit of a lone wolf in the sense that she's a red wolf and she got taken in by a pack of gray wolves. And so, but everyone wants her. But she ran away because she wanted to live her own life, or she wanted to find a human to be her partner. And I can't, like, the guy in this book keeps on referring to that, but I haven't heard her referring to that, and I think she just wants out, but they don't want her out, so they go to get her. It's not a dynamic I like. There also is the antagonist is the leader of the pack, who basically gets to decide who she's with. I mean, like, there's, like, it's so alpha, but it's like, but he's clearly feels like he's the antagonist, he's not the love interest, but he gets to choose her love life. And I'm like, honestly, it doesn't really work for me. I read up some reviews on this one, and and there was one really great review that talks about how some paranormal romances really are, they really have a light world setting and then lots of raciness. I think this one will have that. I'm about 25% of the way through, and there hasn't been too much going on, but it's just not a good fit for me. It just hasn't. I did not. Like, I just read it, and when the last day that I did my timed reading, I read like 5 pages, and I got to the next chapter, and I'm like, okay. So I've just realized that I like urban fantasy generally a lot more than paranormal romance, and paranormal romance often has like these over-the-top alpha characters, women being coveted, and there's only one female character, there's lots of male characters, and everybody wants her, and it speaks to people because there's lots of series and lots of books that have this dynamic, but it does not speak to me. So anyway, I could DNF it. I'm not going to yet because, I'll go into that later. I have a DNF tag video. I don't know if I explained in there why I don't DNF, but for me, sometimes it's nice to have something to read that I'm less invested in, and this is unfortunately, or fortunately for me, a title that is a bit like that, and so, sometimes that's what I like to read, but I just wasn't feeling it this week, so didn't get a lot read on that. At 39 pages read, so I read more of the Prose Edda by Snorri Sturluson. So this is like Norse mythology. This one is and I have 49 pages to go. So I read 39 pages and I have 49 pages to go. So this is actually, I read way more than I expected. This definitely has the Kindle squish. This is given that situation, I feel like if this was in print, I would have read closer to more like 70 pages, but I'm counting being consistent with whatever format I'm reading things in. So this is 39 pages. But knowing there's 49 pages left, that makes me think this is a good candidate to finish in the near future, maybe over 2 weeks, which I'm really, really happy with that progress. I'm not loving the title. It's really dry. The formatting in the book that I have is not great in terms of, like, it just says when the title starts and finishes. There's no chapter. Like, there's in the index, there's no chapters sections. And so when I'm reading, there's no way to know how long the section I'm reading is. And that doesn't sit well for me, because sometimes the sections are like a paragraph describing, someone's heroic deeds and stuff. And then sometimes it's like pages and pages of tales of their heroic deeds. So I guess it depends on how many heroic deeds and connections and family members that have things to say something about. I don't know. I'm not really loving it. This is definitely, I realize sometimes, I always like to sort of go as close to the source as you can. But with this one, I feel like some of the stories, like, I'm like, oh yeah, that's familiar, but it's mostly familiar because I read it somewhere else. Like the story of, like, I think there's like a seal that they have to cover with gold. Loki is involved, so it's a bit, I think it's a task that he has to do. Anyway, I didn't get I didn't get too much more information gleaning knowledge by reading it, but I do like to read works that are challenging, and this one is definitely an older work, and so I do feel for my reading comprehension it's nice to keep those in the mix because it really makes me work and make me think. So I was flexing those muscles, but I was not getting a lot from it. So anyway, but I feel like I made some really good progress, and I think I'm in good shape to finish it in the near-ish future, depending on where the chips lie. And so we'll see. Who knows? Maybe it'll get picked next week. I don't know. That video will already be up, but I always film my wrap-ups first, so I don't know what I'm reading next week, even though you might. So next up we have, at 70 pages read, Conan the Barbarian, stories by Robert E. Howard. I forgot to write the title of the one that I read. So I read the next story in this collection, and it was 70 pages. It was The Jewels of something. It was not great. As I mentioned in the TBR video, one thing about these works is they do tend to be sexist and racist, and this definitely had that in it. There was huge double standard for a female character that was just so clear-cut sexism, and there were a lot of characters that were I don't remember exactly what words they used, but they were dark-skinned, and they were just not, they were, as the reader, they were written as some people who could be tricked, people that were following a false, God kind of situation, and just not well, like, it's so clear when you read them, and it just makes it a not enjoyable reading experience, and I don't like to read that, and I find it complicated especially because this story was written in 1935, and a lot of works that I've read from that time period or before have that, but I really do like reading adventure stories, and a lot of the writers that wrote them did write like this, so it's like, well, and I know it's so long ago, but it's still, it doesn't sit well, and it's not right. So anyway, I did make progress. I now only have 305 pages left in this collection, but there is another work that's about 300 pages, and there's a novel outside of this collection, and I am aiming to finish this series by the end of the year, but it's like, and now I feel very, like, the more I get into it, the more I'm like, should I just leave this? But the adventure part of it can be fun, but some of the stories have been really great, but but a lot of times it has this element that is not good, so that makes it feel very challenging. So anyway, but I did make progress. So one more story down. I think I have 4 left. Plus there is a novel outside it to complete what I'm considering the series to be complete. So that's an aim for the end of the year. And then after that, the last title, I read 259 pages of Dead Man Rising by Lilith St. Croix. This is the second book in the Dante Valentine series. I now only have 117 pages left to go. This one actually has so this is urban fantasy. It's the second in a series, so I can't say much about it. I am enjoying it. It has I will say that there is a fair amount of repetition in terms of the things. It's first person, so from the character of Dante Valentine, who goes by Danny mostly, but she like thinks the same things sort of like on repeat a lot, and I'm a little surprised at that. And this one's pretty tough. I will say, like, read trigger warnings or content warnings if you need them. There's some pretty tough stuff in this one. The first one was a bit more like action adventure oriented, and it was very full tilt in terms of like you knew what the goal was and aiming for it kind of idea. It was going to be tough, it was, like felt insurmountable, but like the goal was clear. This one actually more follows a mystery, a crime, and sort of the mystery around that crime and things from Dante's past. So, and then there's some other elements. For me, I will say there are a couple of things that I feel, there's one thing in particular that has been so obvious from the beginning. Like I just hold zero suspense over it because I know that's gonna happen. But there was also something I found a little confusing in terms of a character thing in this one. I was like, I almost messaged Amy from Zoe Beck to ask, like, is that character this person from book one? Because I'm not understanding the dynamic and the relationship because it doesn't feel like that person. But I kept reading it and it became clear who it was. She's been reading through the series. I think she's on the last book, the last I checked, or the last I saw on Instagram. Anyway, I am enjoying this one. I obviously got a lot of pages read. 259 pages in 1 week is the most that I've read from one title, full stop, in this version, in this round of the challenge. This is a book that I am reading with a slightly increased font, so the page count is a little increased, but I still think it would equate to, I don't know, like 175 pages. So anyway, and with only 117 pages to go, I definitely want to finish this one, especially because it's mystery. This one's a bit more mystery oriented in terms of the story. Pardon me. So I want to know what happens, and I have a strong sense of a couple things. So I'm like, I want to know if I'm right because that is the way of it, right? You want to know if you're right. I don't read mysteries that much, but I think there is that sense of that driving force to keep you reading to know if your suspicions will be confirmed. But as I said, there's one thing that I hold no suspense over. I'm like, there's like that one thing will happen. I've also read other books by the author, although I don't think that there was a similar dynamic, but it was just, I don't know. I've read a lot of urban fantasy and a lot of paranormal romance, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's so gonna happen. Okay, so if you do the math and you add up all of those pages together from the 4 titles that I was reading, I'm not including I got 1 hour and 10 minutes of We Were Dreamers read, and from the 4 other titles, I read 405 pages. Woohoo! So I totally smashed my 250 page count goal. This is, again, the most pages I have read in any 1 week for this round of the challenge, which I'm very surprised at given how I did not read, like, Heart of the Wolf. I really did not read a lot, and the page count for the prose edda, even though I read it for a fair amount, was pretty low. So, but I guess I also, with Conan, I had the goal to finish that one story. So I kind of knew I would get those 70 pages in. And I will say that I am a little, like, this is the first week that there was nothing clear that I could finish. Everything there was the prose edda with about 60 pages left, 50 pages, no, 85 pages left, that's what it was. And everything else was 275 to 375. So there was nothing clear that I could finish other than the Conan story, but I haven't finished the Conan title, so it's still on my currently reading. So I think I did do really well, and I did get my currently reading down to, I usually share it was at 26. I think I got it down to 24. I finished a whole bunch of manga and graphic novel and comics and kids books and stuff like that this week, and 2 which were carryovers. So I got down to 24, but since then I've started 2 new volumes of manga, so I'm back up to 26. So anyway, the goal eventually one day, the dream is 20. So I'm getting closer. So if we take a look at my reading journal and see how the week went, week 3. So I started at 81, 66, 59, 98. Wow, 56 and 42. And I actually don't even usually read on this 6th day. And I actually got to goal on the 4th day, which has been consistent actually. I think every time I've got to goal on the 4th day. So maybe I like that. So, but 405 pages, and there was only the one day that I listened to audio. I kind of knew that was going to be the case because I knew what my schedule was for the week, and so I left it for that day. It was the best I could do this week. I did read a little bit from some other currently reading titles, not a lot. So 74? Well, that's not bad. That's not bad. And then I read other stuff. I finished my buddy read of Flight of the Phoenix. And yeah, so all of the asterisks are finishes. So I got a fair amount of finishes in this week for other works. This is buddy reads. This is visual works. So comics and manga and graphic novels. Kids book. I read The Only Child. Oh my God, I didn't even pull up a picture. I will leave the name of it and the author. It's a wordless comic. Oh my God. It got me. I just cried. I just cried and cried, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful combination of sort of realism and fantasy, and yeah, no, that got me. I didn't even mean to mention that. So anyway, so I had a lot of other reading going on, and as you can see, everything else ended up being 888 pages, which is, again, the most. These were both in the 500s. So I got a lot of reading in, and it's weird because it didn't feel like a terribly good reading week, and I think that comes down to I'm so used to picking one title to finish every week. And I didn't finish anything. There was an outside chance I could finish the Dante Valentine. I do feel like I could have stayed up really late and finished that one, but I was at a good spot that if I don't get to it next time, it's a good spot to pick up whenever I come back to it. And I do that, especially for the currently reading challenge. If I get to the end of a chapter or the end of a section that is a clear delineation between here and here, sometimes I stop early. But I hit my numbers. I got lots of numbers in, lots of pages read. I think it was just a tougher go of things, and I was struggling with feeling like, should I DNF? Heart of the Wolf. Should I have tried harder to work in audio on different days? And also the Dante Valentine, as much as I am really enjoying that story, it is way tougher than the first book in terms of the content. And some of the stuff is pretty disturbing, even if it's not necessarily on page. So it's been a bit, and the Conan with the racism and the sexism. So the Rosetta was oddly the big winner, other than We Were Dreamers. We Were Dreamers was great. But again, even that got into tougher stuff. So I guess that makes sense of why I'm feeling like this week is a bit more struggly. It just was. And I think it's also like the middle of the challenge, and the middles are never my favorite. I always even with like trilogies or series or anything, I like the beginnings and ends. And if it's a long arc for a TV series, often season 3 seems to be the sweet spot, because that's when the characters really know each other well, and the actors are really centered in their characters, and we know the characters really well. So that's often a really good spot for series that go to sort of 7 seasons or so. That was kind of random. Anyway, so I like the middle of TV series, but I also really like beginnings and ends. So I think I'm just in the middle of a lot of things, and I want to finish something. So hopefully with the picks yesterday, with the video that went up yesterday, hopefully I'll have some possibilities to finish, and we'll see how that goes. So thank you so much for watching. I think I hit all of the things. Upcoming videos, next week I am not sure actually, so that's upcoming videos. That was a bit of a question mark. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do for videos going forward, if I'm going to go back to Friday reads, or if I'm going to go something with the sort of more this style. Maybe I'll share whatever TBR I did create for the week, and then also a weekly wrap up. So maybe do this kind of thing, but maybe in reverse. Maybe do my wrap up on Sundays and my TBR on Mondays or something like that. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking so far. But next week, I will have my final wrap up on Sunday. most likely. I will have a video up on Sunday, and then I will have to decide what to do going forward. Filming on the weekend has been a bit better than expected. I usually don't like filming on the weekend, but the past month there's been so much going on that I wouldn't have been able to film during the week. So I might keep that for now. So let me know, would you be interested in sort of this similar style of like a weekly TBR and a weekly wrap up, but in a more like either I'll pick it ahead of time, or I might kind of decide on some randomizers, but for some elements, but there are other elements, like if I'm doing buddy reads, or if I have like the one thing I'm going to finish. Like if I was creating my own TBR next week, I would be finishing the Dante Valentine's book. Like there's no question. I would be finishing that. I might work towards that even if it doesn't get picked. But yeah, like, so I like having one to finish. So one to finish, one to start, and 3 to work on has been my TBR, like what I've been working on with the past sort of 6 to 8 months. So I don't know, let me know. Weekly TBR videos, even if they're not all random draw, would that still be interesting? And because I got to come up with something, because I don't know, I've just been happy to be back at filming and on a consistent manner, so I want to keep that up. I just have to figure out what exactly I need to do. Anyway, so this week I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know, do you enjoy the middle of things, or do you, like me, enjoy beginnings and ends? Because sometimes it gets a little muddy in the middle, and I'm not the best with that, but you know, it's worth working through it. So that's how this week went. I hope you had a good reading week, and I will be back with another video soon. Thank you so much for watching.